Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we've got China with us. Hi, China, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Chyna Brackeen. I'm the Vice President of Experiences at a company called Sofar Sounds.
Yeah.
I'm based in Tennessee, but Sofar is a global company. We're across about 300 plus markets worldwide. And in my role, I oversee all of our live events business in every city that we're operating in the world. Been in the music industry for about 20 years. I actually began my career as an opera singer, realized that I wasn't quite passionate enough about opera to be on tour for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so I pivoted behind the scenes first for an opera company running marketing and events for them. I launched an opera and classical musical festival that won several national and global awards. Got on the radar of a independent concert promoter called AC Entertainment. They were the founders of the Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival. So I was able to really cut my teeth with that company, taking over all of the marketing and public relations, working not just on Bonnaroo, but a number of concert tours and venues and artist management projects worldwide, and then launched my own company for about 12 years before coming over to Sofar just after the pandemic.
That sounds so cool, and you've got such a varied
Yeah.
range of experiences you can tap into there. That sounds awesome.
I do. I do. I feel like I tell people sometimes I've done everything from, posting the flyers on the walls in the city to, building stages, booking concerts, building festivals from the ground up, and artist management, running record label, everything in between.
And when you say head of experiences, do you want to explain to the listeners what that means and what that involves?
Sure. So a little bit of history on Sofar first, just to give some context. We were really sort of started as the antidote to the over-homogenization of the live music industry, and the impersonalization of it, So I think it's so many of us have had this experience where we go to a club to see music and everybody's more busy having conversations or filming through their phones or spilling their beer on you than actually enjoying the music. And so we really wanted to create an intentional space for fans to connect with artists. Started really as living room concerts and then grew from there. And now we're in unexpected spaces all over the world. We do pop-up events. And while almost everything we do is rooted in music, we've begun to expand into other verticals as well. So we do things like dance shows, pop-up dinner parties, singles events, comedy shows, all kinds of experiences. We're really about getting people off of their couches
Yeah,
into real life to connect with one another and to connect with art.
that's lovely. And tell us a little bit more, like, what are some of the challenges and barriers do you think artists face now when they're coming into live music?
Sure. Well, I think one of the biggest one is, just getting in front of an audience. And I think it's easier than ever to release music, but it's harder than ever to cut through the clutter of everything that's out there. And so one of the things that I really love about working at Sofar specifically is that we're not concerned with how many streams an artist has or whether they're a household name yet.
Yeah.
We're concerned with whether they can make an impact in the room. We want a really compelling live performance. And so we will give artists a chance who don't have a huge fan base at all. And we've been able to identify talent before it's become household names. So artists like Billie Eilish have played with us
Yeah.
before they really broke through.
Yeah.
Leon Bridges, Chapel Roan has played with us. I mean, the list is pretty impressive. So I would say that's a huge barrier for artists. I think developing a personal connection with fans is
Absolutely.
harder and harder to do these days as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing that I think we're really good at doing is because we are doing these smaller scale events. Oftentimes, the artists are sitting right next to you in the audience before they jump up to get on stage.
Yeah. And how important do you think intimacy and authenticity is nowadays? Compared
So important.
to, yeah.
You know, we're in the age of the influencer where everything that you see is so produced. It's just, everything is about the image and nobody's really thinking about telling the truth to you anymore. And so I think people are craving authenticity and really just want to see things warts and all,
Yes,
and have an opportunity to just experience real life.
absolutely. And do you think now that artists are becoming more, no, not even the artists, the fans are becoming more aware of that authenticity and they want to connect more with that? Because I think,
Absolutely.
in music, a lot of it is not always what it seems, right? How have you found that in the journey?
Right. Yeah. It's because I ran my own company for a while. And as I said, I ran a small record label as part of that. One of the things that I have been very passionate about for a long time is musicians who actually play their own instruments and singers who can sing.
Yeah,
Because I think so much of what you get, forget AI, which is a whole other
yeah,
realm of things, but just auto tune and all of the tools that are used to overly produce
yeah,
things. And there's a place for all of those tools to be part of art, but sometimes you'll see a live performance from someone who sounded amazing on the album, and then you hear them perform live and you're going,
that's not
what
sound.
is
Yeah,
this?
get that
And
quite
so when you come to a Sofar show, it's the exact opposite. What you're seeing in the room is real, and it is that artist's talent on display. And
often.
I think people connect with that.
They do. And how important do you think marketing is nowadays? Trying to break through and know who your audience.
Sure. Yeah, marketing is huge. But again, I really feel like you should have it rooted in some realness, and having that authentic connection with your fan base. People they're savvy to the fact that they're being sold to
Yeah.
24 hours a day. You can't do anything. You can't be on your social media feed without being sold to. You can't walk into a bar without seeing ads somewhere. And so I think what people are really responding to are those messages that feel more authentic.
And I've always loved belonging and connection. Do you think that's really important as well nowadays, especially for artists trying to break through?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you see it a lot with artists who have fan clubs, even if they're unofficial fan clubs. I think of an artist like Brandy Carlisle, who her fans they call themselves the Bramily, like the Brandy family, and they have relationships with each other. They talk to each other. They travel with each other, not just to go see Brandy Carlisle shows, but because they have become friends through this shared experience. And um, it is so hard for us to figure out how to connect with people in real life these days, and especially as you become an adult, if you're not in college and you're not just thrown in with your dorm mates or something like that, finding those connections is really key, and music can often be part of that building community.
And I think I've struggled with this myself. It's like I've got my own demos, I've got my own songs, I've recorded acoustic sets. What advice would you give to an artist that is trying to make it? And obviously there is a lot of noise out there. What kind of different
Yeah.
strategies would you advise that an artist should go down to get to that point?
Sure. I mean, I always think that artists should play live as often as possible, whether that means an open mic in their town, because finding community with other musicians is as important as building that fan base. You never know when you're going to need an artist to play on an album someday, or when that artist might call you to go on tour with them or something like that. So, just finding those opportunities, the local places where you can play, the open mics where you can play, any kind of local groups of musicians and people who are in the music industry who you can connect with and build those relationships with. It sounds trite, but you really never do know who it is that you're meeting and where they're going to go someday. And so if that person that you're friends with from your hometown becomes the next superstar and they remember that you were really talented, then suddenly you have a door that you can use to build your own career.
That's a great answer. Thanks, China. And obviously, being
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
it's not always straightforward and easy. So, what kind of challenges and barriers have you faced accessing music and entertainment?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think being a woman in the industry is a barrier on its own. When I started, which was, 20 something years ago,
Yeah,
um,
very.
I was the only woman in my company at the time, and it was a very frat house mentality. And I had to be tough, and I had to learn how to deal with that, and I had to learn to stand up for myself and really say, like, look, I know what I'm doing, and you're going to listen to me. So that would be one thing. I think also this industry can be one that is built on a lot of nepotism. It's all about who you know or who you're related to. And
Yeah,
if you don't have those relationships already, it can be difficult to navigate that. And, you know, what I learned pretty early on is that when you are dealing with a lot of people who got their jobs because they're related to someone or they know someone,
yeah.
they're not always the people who are working the hardest. And so if you can work hard and prove your worth, then you can actually carve your own path pretty easily.
So, you think hard work can actually beat talent if you just
I
keep with?
I think hard work can beat relationships.
Okay.
The relationships are still important, but I think the relationship can only land you the
Yeah.
position. It can't really keep you there, and it can't help you navigate. And so I think being able to prove your worth when you've gotten in the door is really important.
Absolutely. And how important do you think it is for artists to actually understand the business and have a bit of education around it?
Hugely,
Yeah.
hugely important. I I did artist management for 12 to 15 years, and it really always struck me how the artists who had a savvy sort of understanding of the business were able to get ahead so much more quickly. Um, a lot of people don't understand that it is a business. And, you think you love music, you're playing music because of your love for it. You know that you want to make a career of it, but you don't want to treat it like a job. And in fact, you have to. And the reality is that there are parts of any job that are always going to annoy you and that you're not going to like, and you still have to do them. And so I remember an artist I was managing at one point, and they were going on tour, they had an album release, and as part of their tour, they were having to do media interviews every day and then go and load into the venue and sound check and play the show and do a meet and greet and the whole 9 yards. And this artist said, well, I don't want to do any of the interviews. I'm just not into it. And I was like, well, but if you don't do the interviews, you don't get the press coverage, and then the people don't hear about your music. You're not going to come to any of the shows. And he's like, well, that just makes it feel like work.
Oh,
It's like,
okay.
well, it is, and it is exhausting, and not everybody's cut out for it.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be willing to do the parts that feel like work in order to be able to do what you love.
Yeah. And there's some extreme highs and some very low lows at times. How do you balance
Absolutely.
that?
Oh, I don't know if I've completely learned how to balance it. I mean, I do think that you have to find an outlet away from the music industry, and I think that you need to, touch grass every once in a while and just kind of like get back in touch with who you are
Absolutely.
outside of the industry. But it can be, it's such a personal job,
Yeah.
I mean, you do pour your heart and soul into being in this industry, whether you're an artist or you're on the business end of things. And it can really take a toll on your mental health. And, we all know that there are plenty of people who've been in this industry who have had substance abuse problems or mental health issues. And it's just so important that you find a chance to step away and take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And what's your thoughts and feelings around equity, diversity, inclusion? Because we do a lot of talk around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge proponent of them. And I actually was part of the Book More Women initiative for music festivals about 10 years ago, probably, where we were trying to turn the tide of how many women were getting booked
Yeah.
at music festivals. I was running a festival at the time that we ended up being, our last lineup was 54% women or non-binary performers, and then it was, I think, 37% BIPOC
Okay.
performers, and then we had a fairly high percentage of performers who were disabled as well. And so I was really proud to be able to bring such a diverse lineup. And I think one of the things that can be challenging in booking lineups like that is not that there aren't enough artists who are talented. There are plenty of them. It's
Yeah.
that they haven't been given the same platform to build their career at
Right.
the same level. And so it really is incumbent on people from the very smallest clubs on up to the very largest festivals
Right.
to develop those artists and book them and give them a platform so that they can find their audiences, so that they can grow into the headliners of, the Coachellas and the Bonnaroos in the future.
Absolutely. Now you're based in the United States. What's the music industry saying over there? And obviously what's going on at the moment?
Well, I mean, the elephant in the room in the United States music industry is Live Nation. They own almost every venue, and they have 360 deals with artists, so they really control who you get to see and what you get to see. Um, and it's really difficult for independent promoters and independent clubs to stay open. We're seeing the
So,
smaller rooms close left and right, and that's a global phenomenon, and you're seeing it all over the world. And so coming back to my role at Sofar, that's one of the things that we try to combat. We don't have physical venues that we own, but we're going into non-traditional spaces and transforming them into venues so that we can provide that atmosphere for those artists who are developing. Because when you have a large company like Live Nation, who's running everything, they're never going to give performance opportunities to those artists who aren't already household names.
and I think this is where we're losing out on the artist development side of it nowadays because a lot of labels don't invest in artists like they used to either, right?
It's true. They do not. They don't. Yeah. And even when you are signed by a label now, it's not. it's not as lucrative as it used to be.
No.
You know, you used to get an advance, you used to get a huge marketing budget, you'd have a whole team of people working on promoting your music.
Yeah.
Labels are down to bare bones on their staffs as well. And so, you know, they're having to have maybe one person manage eight different releases at the same time. There's only so much that they can do, and then they're not putting as much money toward it either.
Yeah. And do you think Spotify's kind of demonetized the music industry a little bit?
Definitely. I mean, I just my personal experience was that, you know, I went from I was managing artist right when Spotify was really kind of rising. And so we saw the dramatic drop in the
Right.
money that they were making. First of all, selling physical media because people could stream everything for free.
Yeah.
Then when they first started streaming, the royalties were pretty good, but
Yeah.
then the royalties got worse as time went
Right.
on. And so you went from being able to count on mailbox money and having your Spotify royalty check come in, and you could really pay the bills and, you know, make everything happen that you needed to, oh, okay, well, here's a check for $10. What am I going to do with that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is
So yeah,
music.
Spotify's great from the perspective of being able to discover new music. And I mean, I do think that there is value to it there, but it's not compensating artists fairly at all.
This is what I think, and I just want to see, like, do you think the strategy's changed as well of releasing music? Do you think it's become more singles based and driven now rather than album based?
Definitely. And I think it makes me a little sad. I mean, I really love the story an album can tell and being able to sit with an album and live with it. But that's not how people consume now. Part of that is Spotify and the algorithms and all of that. But part of it is also just our attention span as we've become more addicted to social media and we're seeing things in bite-sized sort of clips. People just don't have the patience to sit down and listen to a whole album anymore. And so we have had to kind of adjust the way that music is being released in that way. And now you're seeing stars made because their song goes viral on TikTok
Yes.
in, you know, 30-second clips,
Mhm.
rather than somebody really discovering a full song on the radio and falling in love with it.
And how important do you think personality is these days? Because a lot of people don't really talk about personalities anymore. And I think
Yeah.
personalities has massive parts to play in any
I
artist.
think it does. And actually I think it maybe is even more important now because social media is so prevalent because you do have an opportunity to learn more about the people who you're listening to really, really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about when I was growing up, it was like you would read magazines or you might see them on TV, on like the entertainment shows or on MTV or something like that. But you couldn't just like pull out your phone and learn everything about a person in a minute and see videos of them sometimes at their very worst because somebody's, you know, filmed them when they're having a temper tantrum about something. So it really that it goes back to image. And you do it's not just personality, but it's how are you presenting
Yeah.
that and what is the image that you're showing everybody.
Great advice. And obviously, China, you've been in this industry for a long time now. What do you know? What are the things you'd like to see improve over the next couple of years? What would you like to see become better for artists and for people that are working behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, equity is a huge thing for me. Pay equity is really important. I think we still have a gap, you know, not just for women, but for people of color, anybody who's different in any way from sort of the mainstream white male music industry figure. There's a pay gap, and so I think we need to address that. I would like to see speaking of pay, you know, more fairness in terms of streaming compensation and finding a way to replace the income that artists have lost. It used to actually be pretty easy to make a living as a mid-tier artist. You know, you might have to tour a whole lot to do it, but you could sell music, you could sell merch on the road, you could get paid for the gigs that you were doing, and you could buy a house, you know. Nobody can buy a house these days anyway. It doesn't matter if you're an artist or not, but but still you could have a decent life.
Yeah.
And now I think it's so hard. The cost of touring is astronomical, first of all. There aren't the clubs who can give you guarantees and pay you.
Yeah.
So you don't have the opportunities that you once had. You're not going to sell much merch because nobody's buying physical media. So you have to be really creative about what you're selling. And then you're not going to be making any money off of streaming. And so your hope is you're going to have a song go viral. You're still not going to make that much money, even if your song goes viral. Or, you know, maybe you get a sync placement in the TV show. Um, and that doesn't pay as much as it used to either. And so it just feels like every single income stream that artists used to have has been whittled away. And now it's really difficult. And I see a lot of artists who were doing really well before the pandemic who now say, I just can't figure out how to make a living. I've got to go get another job.
Yeah. And how do you think publishing's changed as well around this time? Because I think it's become more lucrative now than the record deals, right?
It really has. It
Yeah.
really has. Yeah, it's almost better to go write a hit for somebody else
Yeah.
than to release your own music.
So this is where I think we're at the moment, and it's really exciting to
Yeah.
see that we're changing all the time. We're evolving. Let's just hope it becomes more streamlined, more equitable, and fair for
Let's
everybody.
hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's some of your major wins and successes before we go, China, that you want to share with the listeners?
Sure. Wow. I should have thought about this. Let's see. I think, more recently, in my time at Sofar, we really have transformed our business in the time that I've been here. And when I joined the company, we were booking things on more of a centralized model. And so we had a core team of people who would manage multiple cities remotely. And it was pretty clear that we lost a little bit of the heart and soul that you have from having someone in a city who knows their local scene, who can identify those artists who are bubbling up. And so I led the transformation to a locally run model, which has been really successful for us. And that's a huge success for me. Not only has it sort of transformed the company financially, but it's really taken the quality of our events just to new heights and has allowed us to really do what we have sought out to do all along, which is to support those artists
I've
who
been
are
to,
local to their cities who don't have a platform.
yeah, I have been to
Um,
your
so-
live shows before in London. So yeah, I know you're about,
yeah,
I know
good,
what you do, which is great. Um,
great.
if people want to reach out with you, they want to collaborate or connect, find out more about what you do or support the work you're doing, how could they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. They can come to sofarsounds.com. I am on Instagram at Attack Monkey. So if anybody wants to reach out to me personally, they can do that there.
Okay, I'll leave all the links in the description below. And I just want to say thank you ever so much for your
Yeah.
time, energy, your expertise. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.